In this video, I'm going to be building some cabinets in my camper van. But not these ones though. These are my mum's. Bada boom, bada boom. Right, quick warning. This is about to get a little bit scientific, so you might want to buckle up. So, what I need to do is attach the wooden beams to these top metal parts of the body here on this van, which is the point where I'm going to secure the cupboards and cabinets to. But the problem is that these aren't parallel to each other, not parallel faces. They come at a slightly downward facing angle like that. So what that means is I'm going to have to calculate this angle and then cut the wood so that the outer face on each side is parallel to each other. So what I need to do is a little technique I learned when I was landscaping in Australia, which is using string, or in this case thread, because I couldn't find any string. So cheers for my mum's sewing kit. And I'm going to find two even points where these holes are in this bit of metal here. So I'm going to run the string across, and then that will give me the angle, that string line to here will give me the angle that I need to cut the wood. So then all I have to do is get an angle measuring tool to calculate the correct angle, then I can cut the wood. So hopefully that made sense. Okay, so that's done. It might be a little bit difficult for the camera to detect, but there's the thread from that top square there to this top square here. I'm kind of running under the assumption that they are at the same height. If not, then this will all be totally So now I can measure the angle from that string to this. Right, so this is where the magic happens. This is my 2-in-1 digital angle ruler. Okay, so yeah, as you can see, it's 98 degrees, which is slightly larger than a right angle, hence why the cupboards would be pointing towards the ground. Now I'm just quickly taking some widthways measurements and marking it down to cut. And you'll never guess what I'm gonna do next. Yeah, I'm cutting the wood. How did you know? Right, so now I'm gonna do a bevel cut on all these bits of wood, which basically just means it's cut at an angle. There's probably a better way to do this, but this is just the best way that I could think of how to do this. I'm using the circular saw. I've set the angle to as close to 8.15 degrees as I could get it. They're now cut, and I'm giving them a quick sand to make them nice and smooth. Okay, so these are all done now. I've laid them out in their respective positions where I'm going to bolt them into the body of the van and then have the cupboards screwed in to the wood. I did have to cut them in half though, just because they were too long for the bevel cuts. I decided to use 3 methods of attachment to secure the wooden blocks in the van body to keep it strong. Lucky 3 as they say, or unlucky 3. I hope not. So, as you can see, I've marked out the location for the screws and one for the bolt, which are the first 2 methods of attachment. So here I've drilled a hole and then drilled a larger shallow hole for the top of the bolt to sit in, enabling it to be flush. Drilled a hole through the metal in line with the wood, then drilled a larger 9mm hole in the metal so the rivet will fit. Then I put in the M6 rivet, and here's the final method of attachment. Sikaflex 522. Next I use a spanner to screw the bolt in, but for the rest realised it was quicker to use a hex drill bit. And finally I screwed in the 60mm screws. I also drilled a larger shallow hole so the screws could sit flush to the wood without damaging it. There we go. That is finished. I think it only took me about a month to do. Because, yeah, I've got a bed in now and a fridge. Parkour! Yeah, the timeline in these videos makes absolutely no sense. It's even less logical than the X-Men franchise. So next, I'm going to be using these shelf brackets. Right, so basically, I don't really have a plan for making all these cabinets on the top, but what I've done is a really lazy way of installing these, which is essentially just making them shelves, but with a case and door around them rather than just being the bottom panel. And this is just because like the other videos I've seen on YouTube where they've installed cabinets in the top corners, they sort of screwed them into the roof and had framing all up here. But because mine's a high roof van with fiberglass, I can't really use any of the top bit as structural support. So all I've really got to work with is this. And I don't see why not. It's a lot easier, and these are pretty heavy duty and sturdy. So I think it's, yeah, it's easy and it should work. We'll find out. There we go, that's the first lot done. It might not be the most professional or technically correct way to do it, but it does the job, so why not? there we go, that's the second lot done. And I've made sure these are all level by referencing them to this bit of timber here, making sure they're all touching it. They kind of look like little diving boards, to be fair. Whee! No! He didn't make it! What am I gonna tell his family? Right, so I'm using a new tool now, so hopefully it's more accurate than the jigsaw. It's a circular saw, so let's give it a go. Also, I got some sawdust in my eye, that's why I'm wearing these, so yeah, I'm scared of wood now. And yeah, I completely ballsed up this first one, like, started wandering off course there, so let's forget about that one. Right, there we go, I've clamped either side, and then I'm using this straight edge of this bit of plywood here that I've also clamped down onto it to act as a reference point for this part of the circular saw to rest against, hopefully keeping the line straight all the way across. I've just completely cut into my dad's workbench, so I've readjusted it, I'll finish the cut and then assess the damage when that's done. The damage is minimal, thank the Lord. Yay! For context, I'm first cutting the wood for the unit that will be going above the sofa bed. I think I'll put things like kitchen crockery, pots and pans in there. Now I'm cutting these pieces into their correct widths with the miter saw and also cutting up some spruce timber sticks to build the frame. Right, so yeah, the strategy basically is just building these little squares, and then I'll have 4 of them and they'll sort of go on either end, and then 2 in the middle on the interior, and then that will act as the structural support. And for these I'm using 60mm screws here, and all I'm doing is going from this edge through to the middle bit on the other side. I'm not bothering with any pocket holes just to save time, and I don't think they're necessary for these. Look at that, totally uniform. I'm getting pretty good at this carpentry thing. Right, I'm going to finish the rest of it inside because it was getting a little bit too dark out there. Just giving it a little test, and 2 medium-sized pans and a colander fit in one. So yeah, it's looking pretty spacious. Just thinking about it, I don't think I actually need to paint the inside because I don't actually mind the pattern of wood. Also, I'm very lazy. I will not let laziness dictate my decisions. I'm gonna paint the inside. Bosh, that's done. I've screwed it into the shelf brackets, and then I've also put 3 screws as well into the wooden supports behind. Wait, what's that? Oh my gosh, he's back! Felipe the Stuntman! Back for his biggest and best ever trick, 360 double backflip no scope helicopter. Oh my god! I must have autism. I ran out of wood, so I'm just getting some more from B and Q. And now I've got to do all of that again. Okay, there we go. They're both in now. And next, I'm going to put in some doors. Also, I've got no hair anymore. Damn! Alright, so now I'm cutting some thin strips of MDF to build the perimeter of the cabinet doors. Then I've drilled some pocket holes in the smaller pieces, which I've then screwed into the longer pieces, as well as securing it with some Sikaflex 522. Next, I'm giving it 2 coats of my very fancy almond coloured paint so it can match the other wooden structures in my van and also my traditional Japanese theme. And then I've used this rattan to fill the space in the doors to give them a nice pattern and texture. I cut small appropriate size squares and then nailed them to the back with some upholstery tags that also have a nice pattern on them. And thanks to this YouTuber for the idea. I'm now going to drill some holes in the perimeter of the doors so I can put my finger in, pull a little latch, and then that will release the doors. so they can open, with the latch keeping them shut so that they don't just open and all the stuff falls out when I'm driving. I also record the weight of most things I put into this van and then record it in this Excel sheet just so I have a log of the total weight of the van. Bada boom, bada boom! It's looking lovely! Look at that. And also, actually, I've just noticed as well that there was a potential dimming effect that could have occurred with these doors going up. But that's another perk to this rattan, that the light shines right through. So obviously, if I'm lifting this up, it still illuminates into the cupboard. So yeah, that is very, very handy. Except this one, they sort of do still open onto the solid wood. But I think, well, that one will too. But then this one will have the shine through effect. So yeah, that's pretty helpful. And that's the second lot done. And next I'm cutting up some trim. I gave it 3 coats of paint, but only filmed 1. Right, now let's put on the trim. I'm just gonna glue it on with some wood glue and then also a little bit of Sikaflex just to hold it in place whilst it's drying. I've literally left it here for like 5 minutes because it always takes so long to come out of this bottle. It's literally got the gravity of the flipping moon somehow. So it defies the laws of physics, but I've big brained it and it got it out in advance. Also, I'll just quickly say the reason I'm doing this is just so that the trim blocks this little bit of the wood you can see between this carpeted underside and then the wooden block that I've screwed the cabinets into. So yeah, that's looking all right. And this is what it looks like from underneath. All right, so I was originally planning on doing these cabinets as well on either side of the bed, but turns out it's going to be a little bit more complicated than I initially thought. And this video has already taken quite a lot of time, so I'm not going to include that in this video. And I might just do it a little bit down the line on the YouTube on a short or something like that, and then just keep it real simple. Just because they're pretty... This side's all right. It's more this side with the solar panel, fuse box, and then like this just getting in the way. So I'm going to have to cut really awkward shapes, and it's going to take me a little bit of time to figure out logistically how to actually do it. So I'm not going to bother including any of that, and yeah, it's going to be a YouTube short. Also, the last thing I need to say is I am going to put in some lock latches inside these cabinets so that I'll be able to put my finger in the hole, pull a little lever, and that will release it so I can open it. But frustratingly, they haven't arrived in time for this video because I didn't check the delivery time on Amazon. So I can't include that in this video as well, but that will be a YouTube short as well. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and also check out some other videos if you want. See you later.